It's good. My name is Saku Tivrenen. Glad to be sharing some of my thoughts about the importance of networking in career planning and job search. I was intending to use career planning. Sorry, I just lost in my thoughts. The Menti program at this point, but I suppose it doesn't really make sense when there's a few of us only. So we can save a bit of time there. Anyone watching today or later on, you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's a brief intro what I've done for the past soon 10 years. I don't know how I'm going to be celebrating my 10th anniversary in the recruitment business, but indeed in early May 2021, it's going to be 10 years that I've been working in the recruitment scene, and I have to say it's been quite an interesting journey. If I think about kind of like the key highlights, what types of learning curves I've experienced. I think in the public sector, I've had the privilege when I started in 2011 at the city of Järvenpää. I had the privilege of being involved in recruiting people in managers in different domains. So I think I will not very soon get a similar opportunity to sort of be involved in recruiting a head teacher or head of urban planning or head of medical doctors and etc. So that really sort of provided me a great glimpse of what kind of key elements are needed in different domains, and yet then what's similar across the different professions when it comes to selecting people. And for the past 3 years and bits, I've been working in the field of software development, especially, and more generally in IT recruitment. First at Senior, then at Elisa, and now at Talented. And Talented's provided me an opportunity to sort of change the table on the other side of it. So basically, 9 years in recruitment in-house role was changed to the consultancy role a little bit more, and that's been very refreshing perhaps, and it's provided again another interesting learning curve for myself. And I still proceed gradually with my research that I was doing full-time for a year and a half in 2016 and 17, and visited the University of Edinburgh at the time and the University College Cork, and can only recommend that experience to do that type of exchange period. Of course, COVID times created another obstacle to the shorter periods, but the longer periods are quite doable. Okay, enough of me. So a very brief highlight of what Talented does before then kind of jumping into this topic of today. In the IT market, I think they experienced, especially software developers, but also data engineers and designers, they really get to choose. The experienced ones get to choose where they work at, and Talented is a bit of a talent agency, whereby we sort of communicate with the people. What types of roles and organizations they would love to work for, and then we sort of match them to the companies, not the other way around. And that, I think, makes us a little bit unique. At least we like to think so. And I work in digital leaders, so be that then product owners or CTOs or such like, that's where I come in. But yes, that's enough of the more commercially oriented information. A brief glimpse on the sort of present setting before then jumping into the world of networking and perhaps personal branding as well, to be able to, for you to be able to really lead your career. That's what I've been studying. My topic is kind of like how people choose jobs, and particularly well-positioned professionals such as software developers and child protection social workers. And the key element in my study is that the junior professionals actually have it fairly difficult to land jobs. It's not as straightforward as it is for the senior developers. So in spite of it all, kind of like we don't have many software developers and etc. That mantra's been spoken for at least 5 or 6 years here in Finland, and yet the it's the junior developers that actually struggle to land jobs. So that's just kind of like a basic pointer. And when I'm talking about developers, then of course I'm inclusive of other professionals as well. But I think just to highlight that even junior software developers can struggle to land jobs. It just demonstrates what's the situation. Also, Finns returning from overseas without a finished degree or experience, they can struggle. What helps? Well, there's a good point to make some drum noise, but networking. Networking does make a difference to landing new opportunities and etc. And I think the key element of networking to understand, en route to new jobs is not that okay, and I will start networking now and in a month's time I will have landed a new role for myself. No, it's a kind of like an implicit game. Job hunt is an explicit game, and you need to be active in it as well. But then networking and personal branding is then the implicit game that can lead to jobs as well. That why else bother with it? About the future years. What's really good to understand is that you are in an excellent position. Finland's already aging, and then thinking about the population change and development. We are going to be shrinking as a country if nothing changes when it comes to kind of like recruiting from overseas and hiring internationals in Finland and etc. Because I'm jumping to this point that because of the last decade of decreasing age groups in Finland, and it's no rocket science after you compare those figures of 2010 to 2019. However, it's good to realize that also that when we're talking about that, okay, Finland's in trouble or whatever, it doesn't mean that all the country is in trouble. We're talking about different regions that are growing at this time. So this is just a picture highlighting the population growth in 2020, and 75% or 75 of the municipalities were growing, and 235 were decreasing in size with regards to population, that is. Then just a brief glimpse based on the consultancy firm's reports on the future. You know, as we are soonish entering the post-pandemic world, hopefully, fingers crossed, and all the rest of it. What's curious to recognize is that you know, the jobs that have been at risk during the pandemics have been similar to the ones that are likely to suffer from in terms of numbers, suffer from AI and automation. And you know, talking with you guys, it's obvious that, you know, in spite of the wave of automation, that Europe's going to be lacking skilled workers in say 2025, 2030. And then I think it's one of these elements of realizing that you know, different cities, different towns, different regions, say in Finland, they develop at different pace, and people might be in sort of wrong locations within Finland, or then with wrong education, and that question of labor market mismatch is a key to kind of like solve. And then, you know, there's a lot of people to be trained in the future years. And again, looking at I think this was by Corn Ferry. You know, Finland is there with Britain and Germany. Seriously, you know, lacking in talent, and you know, India pretty much being one of the sole countries that can be looking at the future years with regards to having enough talent in a safe manner. So, you know, thinking about you know, Aalto students, I think you have an excellent position for the future years. But that still doesn't mean, you know, it will be easy, you know, to land the job as a junior professional. I'm sure you know that, but still. So, talking about this theme, you know, of course, no reason to, you know, spend any time waiting for somebody to catch you from home. You might not do it. But, you know, thinking about the key elements to take away from this set, you need to be active, and I'm going to be showing you how. But you know, you just need to be super active. You know, it's, even though it's a beautiful idea that you know, being active at school and finishing the courses really well with good grades and great grades, you know, even and etc. You know, that would do it, but it might not be quite enough. So you know, you actually need networks as well. And you know, I'm talking about being kind of like relentless, you know, in terms of being active. And you know, by being relentless, I mean that, you know, you really need to know where you you know, strive to be, yeah, where you aim at being, and then you need to work accordingly, and do the steps needed. And of course, being solution focused as well. So you know, and especially when talking about applying to jobs, you know, that's something to pay attention to. That you know, it's not about you, that, you know, what you've done at the end of the day. It's more about, okay, what you can do for the company, what sort of a problem you can come in and solve, you know, and etc. And that's something to bear in mind. And I will share my story to give you a sort of a reference point. This at first, this takes about, I think, 15 minutes or so, and then we jump in kind of like what to do and etc. But hopefully my my story as well demonstrates some pointers already, how to do things differently. Because I think too often, from my perspective, a lot, people come in and say, you need to do this and this and this and that, and then sometimes the challenge might not be to recognize that, yeah, I need to be kind of like networking and building a bit of a personal brand, but then the bigger challenge, the bigger obstacle is, how do I get started, and how do I kind of like let go of the feeling that, oh shit, excuse me, shouldn't be kind of like, how do I do it, how do I feel about it, and etc. So let's see if this eliminates this case at all. Hello, I was born in 1980, making me pretty old, but thinking about networking and personal branding and communicating and remotely, I start with pen pals and all the rest of it. So it's kind of like, I think my first networking effort was definitely probably a pen pal from the text TV that we used to rely on information prior to the world, the internet, and then kind of like thinking about when I came across with the emails and etc. That was probably when I was 15, and then the first text message at 17. So it's peculiar, how accustomed we become with all these things. I can confess that I was probably a little bit funny with my own approaches or kind of like how I look at that things, but IRC gallery was a big thing in Finland at the time, and MySpace more globally, but I thought too geeky, not for me, which is a bit funny looking back, but anyway. And then kind of like opening the first Facebook account when I was 27, making me, that's 2007. And that's really for the spare time purposes. That's kind of like one of the elements that I've realized lately, that over the past half a year or so, it's, Facebook's become more and more, similar to almost, well, Twitter, not really comparable to LinkedIn, but anyway. And at the time, I also opened the LinkedIn account, and that was purely as an online CV, not necessarily very up-to-date CV either. And thinking about myself now, working in recruitment, and said 10th anniversary in the field or industry of recruitment, etc., looming, I didn't really realize or know what I was going to be doing in my early 20s, and that's just something that I think it's quite natural, but just to kind of like also share a bit of a perspective that if you don't know quite yet, I think no worries, you will get there as well. And also, I didn't really know about networking. It really did sound to me like one of them better off folks' problems. Nothing to do with me, so to speak. But yeah, I'm thinking about the public speaking and communications. I was like, nah, not going to happen. I will not. I will not do it. End of story. But then, thinking about this is already jumping into 2011, when I started to work at the city council as a recruiter. Before that, I started in 2004 my bachelor's degree at the University of Edinburgh, my first gig in Edinburgh, that is, and etc. So things gradually picked up, but yes, I had that notion that public speaking as such, like it's not for me. I was really much more content that let's use Facebook for whatever personal kind of like communications or such like, but you know, there's no reason to bother with any of the more professional minded communications on online really. And thinking about the realization that my master's thesis, which was a pretty average piece of work, that, you know, it could be seen online. I started with the feeling that it took me quite a while to get kind of like to get used to the idea that people can access it freely, and of course, you know, there's a number of reasons, but then, you know, it wasn't the perfect piece of work I should have made, and you know, and all the rest of it, and yeah, I think that similar feeling, you know, is something that I held towards, you know, professional kind of like representation of myself on social media and such like. But then what happened, you know, we did in 2016, the year, again in Edinburgh, and I did my the PhD leave at the time, and I started thinking that this is something I need to pay attention to, that I'm doing a PhD, work in progress, but anyway, and then I've got a public sector CV, and I sort of realized at the time that this is not going to be a killer combination. You know, if I want to be moving into the private sector at some point, and equally, you know, in the public sector also, you know, a lot of the roles in recruitment and HR, you know, the hiring directors, they like to have people from the private sector. So I sort of realized if I want to be doing something else in the future, I need to start doing something about it. I suppose implicitly started thinking I need to be sort of the driver of my career, rather than just kind of like be ending up in situations where I don't want to be at. Yeah, I really started recognizing that you know, if I'm going to be only applying for new jobs in the future, or then people contacting me, you know, be that renowned PhD researcher, whatever, I might be waiting for them jobs for a while. And I don't know, was it me trying to escape from the daily ordeal of conducting research or whatever? But I sort of started looking at LinkedIn, especially from a different perspective. These days, I wouldn't be looking only at LinkedIn. You know, there's a lot of different tools and such like, you know, Meetup and etc. To look at different conferences, different fields, and etc. But you know, at that point, that felt like a cunning plan. Let's start doing something about the online presence. And at the early stage, you know, the LinkedIn presence, you know, it required additional connections. I think I had 300 or so connections from my years in the public sector in recruitment. I had connected only people that I know, personally know, or personally have met. And then, you know, I tried to let go of it and realize that, yeah, I actually can drop, you know, send a brief a connection, kind of like a message alongside, and just send the LinkedIn connection. And, you know, at the time, you know, I had been working as a recruiter, so I figured that, okay, the people in HR, then all the researchers that are doing HR research, like myself, then recruiters, you know, they would be relevant for me. And then, you know, if one is studying to become, say, a data scientist, then of course you find the similar links to the people that you know, are relevant for yourself, or then, you know, other other similar logic applicable, of course. So looking back, 2016 autumn was pretty much a cutting point where I diverged on a different tangent, started networking actively as a bit of a way of living, just believing that, you know, if I have a chat with someone, you know, be that in a seminar or a training day or you know, exchange messages on LinkedIn or a Facebook group on a professional topic or such, like, I will send them a LinkedIn connection invite with a brief intro. Yeah, we met at such and such. And that was kind of like, you know, very clear decision. You know, it's kind of like, it's either or, you know, and I recommend you to choose as well. You know, just to make it a habit. And yes, I started also coming up with these LinkedIn updates, and yeah, I suppose using memes is a bit old school, I suppose. Soon, you know, I think you know, the next time I go around, there should be GIFs, but I think this picture just perfectly summarizes it, that no one's really interested in the fact that, you know, one is making a LinkedIn update for the first time or whatever. But then, you know, people do that all the time, and they sort of let go of that funny feeling that I can't write anything because it's so silly or whatever, and or I don't know what I actually know, or, you know, folks won't be interested or whatever. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there, especially at the universities, you know, who have an excellent perspective on things, you know, through different lectures and such like. And I highly recommend to make it a bit of a habit. It can be a bit of an online journal even. You know, this sort of a mentality applied can sort of allow you to be sort of expressing sort of a Friday afternoon highlights from the study week, for example. Okay, what themes were of particular interest to you, for example? I think, you know, I would love to read those. Do tag me in a post, you know, if you come up with something like that. Oops. This is interesting. Can you still hear me? I cannot hear you, at least.
I can hear you.
My screen just should have died. Interesting.
Perhaps you can stop sharing and share again. Sometimes that usually helps.
Yeah,
it's small, it gets stuck nowadays somehow.
It's very interesting. Let's see. So yes, it allows me to do a number of things. Yes, this time it didn't cut me out. That's just bizarre. Half an hour. I think it must be a sort of the computer suggesting that okay, make people active. You know, you've been talking for half an hour already. You know, shut up.
It shows that your picture is active now. If you click on the side outside of the picture, perhaps that. And now, if you can you now?
Yep. Still can't see me. Or that.
Yeah. This car picture. Yes, we can see you.
Yeah.
And this one.
Yeah. Wonderful. Many thanks. Thanks for the instructions. Here I am, learning every day. But yes, so then kind of like just highlighting that you know, networking and such, like when you start doing it, you know, and then, you know, be that then on, you know, LinkedIn, for example, but then realizing that, you know, there are other examples, even though using LinkedIn as an example, that, you know, it's not something that you can, you know, rely on that, you know, one is landing a job soon, but rather it's a question of again, you know, explicit job hunt and then implicit networking and personal branding. And thinking back, 10 connections a month, sounded to me as quite a bit before Edinburgh happened. And but then after that, I realized that if need be, it can be 1,000 in a month, and all it takes is to be sort of actively spending whatever half an hour per day or such, like at different people with somehow relevant professional links to yourself. And of course I fully appreciate if someone feels that I don't want to be contacting people who I don't actually know. No worries at all. But if you want to make a personal benefit out of this, then I just recommend you to do it. So I moved from having 300 contacts in October 2016 to 3,000 contacts in January 2017, and all it took, I used a little bit of the search engine of LinkedIn of certain keywords that I mentioned earlier. So recruitment, HR research, HR professionals, such like, and just sent a connection invite with them with a brief message about who I am and why I sent out. I was quite transparent. It was just that we are working in the same field and glad to network with new people, and I'm working on research on recruitment, for example. That's all it takes. And then sort of thinking about what one can be doing. I think there's a lot of people listening to this talk as well who already kind of like they don't just only message with their recruiters when in job hunting, and they're not only writing say different updates or such like, and perhaps generate discussion, but also taking part in organizing events. So that's something to really bear in mind, that this is not only some social media update sort of topic that we are discussing here, but much more. So different conferences, different meetups, and etc. In the physical world, if you may, especially after this COVID-19 scenario has finished, they are equally, if not more, important. But really, it's all about, and this applies to both the virtual and also the physical, networking and personal branding. That when you give, you help, you reach out, you will be helped then as well. But I think it first comes the other way, and then yourself. That's how it tends to be. And of course, then, if you want to become really good at it, you can start to create a bit of a social media strategy for yourself and create captivating content along the logic of that, but of your own strategy. But for example, I haven't yet bothered. I probably should, but I've sort of said to myself that I like to be transparent and I like to be sort of myself. So if one says skims and scans through my LinkedIn, for example, updates, the topics don't necessarily always make sense. That why am I talking about them? I don't necessarily make much money out of it, or it's not relevant to my job. But then again, it's real. They are topics that are really genuinely interesting to me, and I think it's one of the key elements of then networking / personal branding. Very important to realize that it's about you. It's about who you are really, and of course there's always room also for the people who share their job or organizational update, the page and the LinkedIn, for example, and share that on their own profile. It's fine, but that's not the way to sort of start to make a particular impact. And yeah, repeating myself a little bit here, but really, it's not a quick solution, but more of a way of life. So, just then demonstrating that, it's very important to realize that, the job applications on their own are one thing, but then networking and then personal branding through these different activities that we already a little bit touched upon, and then to be applying to jobs is a completely different ball game. Not that it might solve everything during the studies, for example. It might still be a little bit challenging to find jobs, but you've already contacted a lot of people during the time and of doing studies, and then to be trying to land a job, there's a lot of people you can reach out and ask for tips if any particular jobs come about and such like. And definitely meetups, Facebook groups, different platforms, different Slack channels, conferences. I think there's similar logic is applicable. And every now and again I come across with a person who kind of like boldly shares the point that yes, I did some networking activities or personal branding activities, and for a few months times, when one was searching for a job actively and then stopped. And it's just one of those things that it's just kind of like, yes, it's okay, one doesn't have to do it, but there's that notion of starting from scratch then, after a long break of working for 2 years, and then kind of like, okay, where's that? Where are the contacts again at that point? Right. Then we returned to Helsinki, and then kind of like it was time to carry on in the more ordinary salaried position. And alongside that, I've then started to be quite active in these themes demonstrated here. So there's a Meetup group, International Recruitment in Finland, that I've founded. We had 10 webinars last year, and it's all about sort of leveraging people and trying to help and inspire folks to again network and create a bit of a personal brand, and etc. And also to inspire companies to hire international folk, because that's needed for this country. The international talent can create such tremendous impact through contributing to new startups, coming up with new businesses, with an from day one international mindset and etc. This one, the film Future Finland, was done late spring last year, and that was all about then trying to inspire then the companies. Hey, this is needed, and they should appreciate this perspective that the internationals can bring about, and etc. And so I'm sort of I suppose over the past year or so, I've started to take in more and more kind of contributing also, not only on the LinkedIn, in the LinkedIn discussions and etc., but actually kind of taking part and trying to share back and etc. The very latest, that's very much at the starting point at this stage, is this very new initiative, Building Bridges, and that the website is buildingbridges.fi, and the idea is to be sort of to build a purpose-driven community that leverages people. So basically, there's a lot of junior professionals, newly graduates in Finland who struggle to land relevant roles or relevant jobs, and then all they might need is a contact or two that are relevant for them to have a discussion, and they might then have a chat with them and then kind of like either hear about an opportunity, or then to hear of two new names to have a chat with, and that's the sort of idea of this very new initiative. And there's not much yet happening there, but I'm sort of seeing in a year's time, we might have at least a few thousand people on board, or why not even 10,000 people on board. And the more there are people kind of like sharing then good tips and good connections, the better. So you're most welcome to join as well, but keep in mind it's at its infancy. So this is obviously a very important topic for myself. So then thinking about your voice, what is your mission? So again, from my perspective, my inspiration and motivation at the time was to do research, but then also pivot from public to private sector. In the 2018, the idea was to help out the company I work for to do well and recruit talents. And then 2019, I was communicating, doing the same, as before, but then also to support international talent in Finland to land jobs. When I was, speaking at a lot of university events at the time, through my job at Elisa, and really realizing that the struggle of landing jobs, it is real. Then last year, starting about creating a bit of a voice for international talent, or taking part in that, and also we got a second place at Imatra, and I started asking them, there's a lot of potential in Imatra, why not do something about it? And I ended up coming up with an Imatra challenge, sort of a competition around the new year. So just lately. So that's something that there's always a chance to contribute, I suppose. And then 2021, this building bridges to FI is something that I quite truly believe in, and but of course it will take some time to make it as influencing as it can be. But I think it's a gradual process, and I look forward to meeting you on the platform. So that's kind of like me, what's been the driving force alongside then the core work position, core work role, and it's then with you, it's all about yourself. What's your mission? What you want to contribute in, and my mission and agenda has developed, and it will keep on developing, and what I found to sort of help in sort of establishing this networking and a personal branding element, and sort of help me navigate through the career is to be myself, and help out, speak out, and I will do well. Sounds a little bit too trusting, but it has seemed to work out, if you know what I mean. So then, what about yourself? How to go forward? I think, when we are looking at the personal branding element, you have a unique story. And your perspective is unique. I think there's a lot of people, be that from Finland, the students from Finland, are have a particular story to share, and also the internationals, have a particular story to share. There's a lot of people studying in Finland who've made it in their home country and now are studying at Aalto, and that's a sort of to me it's a double proof that that one is doing has a tremendous potential. So you have to appreciate your perspective that you have, because through appreciating your perspective and your story, then it allows you to convey your message in a good way, and that's really important. And I mean, it might sound a bit American to some, but you are the future superstar. When I'm thinking about the folks who graduate from Aalto, there's no doubt about it. And really, it's all about realizing that there are a lot of future colleagues that you don't know of, but they will love to hear your perspective, and to realize this, even though you might say that, okay, that's the old geezer just talking about here, but take 5% of my words and appreciate it and take it with you from this session. And you are a big step forward in terms of communicating and networking a lot more. So, then it's all about letting go of the I shouldn't, no one cares, or why should I, mindset, because your perspective is of interest. And every single one of you, who comes up, with a different update, for example, on the LinkedIn or whatever, tag me in the post, because that's the way to make it happen. It's only through action. People plan a lot, but do less. Do the other way around with regards to this personal branding element, and start doing and yeah, think alongside, but don't just plan. Routines are the friends. Make it 10 connection invites per week with a message, and then make it 2 updates a week, and share a story of the lectures or whatever, or a job hunting process or whatever, and then and add 10 likes or comments per week, and just kind of like make it happen. Otherwise it won't. You will be planning it in a year's time. And it's important to realize you don't need to be sort of a perfect. Your mission, your agenda, your perspective, as really good they are, but they will develop, and it's only natural, and it's okay. So really, it's all about being yourself and speaking out and thinking aloud and creating together, reaching out, helping, being helped. You will do well. About networking, I've been talking about that quite a bit, but then just a little bit different perspective. So it's really important to realize that there's the physical, there's the virtual. Often they meet, but some elements of networking are first physical and second virtual, and that's really good to understand that some are the other way around. So really thinking about any one of us, having hobbies or projects, outside of uni, or such like, you are extending your networks already. Scouts, ISX, you are creating networks as you are going about. But truly, I think there's not too many people who can underline this enough. I don't have such a bold pen next to me, but needs to be highlighted that the student associations and such like, if you think about your career in the future, and networks, we all know are crucial to landing future jobs, there is no better time spent at uni than participating to the student associations, especially the ones that are close to your own field, because then you get to know a lot of people in a casual way, in an informal manner. And and if you are wondering, okay, where to start, well, there's a couple of ones. So all the guildas, are good to pay attention to. There's the list of associations. I was trying to take a picture of those, but there's just too many. But you cannot talk about networking and career planning without realizing that the answer is at the organization where you take part in, or the kind of like the informal sort of extensions of the organization. Because I suppose at the end of the day, the subject associations, they are a bit of a sort of a separate entities. So if you haven't realized this before, then start taking part. You don't need to spend too much time, but still to take part and get to know people and etc., because they are the future colleagues, they are the future managers, they are the future hiring people that take part in these associations. So really, again, be yourself. That's the way to do it, and be active. Applying this relentlessness in this field as well. It's all about that, and there's then these elements that I'm repeating a little bit, but you know, the student associations, super important. And just to underline at the very end that it's good to try and maintain that well-being. Sometimes I've you know, presented a little bit similar pointers, and then, you know, I've had the question that, okay, what about, you know, when I'm doing a lot of studies and etc. And I have this pressure of trying to land a job, and then, you know, you're saying I should be doing personal branding and etc. You know, how to maintain well-being. You know, that is really important to have that covered as well. So you know, it's good to maintain some sort of a limit to these elements, and you know, creating a habit out of it, and then, you know, putting limitations as well. And of course, you need to prioritize the important part of the day, you know, the actual work role or the actual study. And then, you know, you need to allow for elaboration and reassessment of you know, what you're doing, you know, with regards to networking and personal branding as well. And there's a lot of people out there who are in a similar role, you know, at the uni. You know, you need to talk and discuss. You know, you don't need to have a burden on yourself only. You know, people are in a similar position, and so talking is sharing is caring, like they say, and I truly believe that. And you know, if you feel that, you know, there is some sort of a pressure on you, that you know, you take a bit of extra you know, stress out of it, you know, perhaps something like, you know, you create a habit for yourself of keeping a limit on not touching on the cell phone, if not, that might be the case, or whatever. But you know, it's very important to maintain your well-being. Thank you. A lot of talk. Apologies. I like to talk, and I suppose you can tell. Any questions?